An employer offering childcare benefits is good for employees, but it's also better for business too. At least that's the finding of a new report from care.com. They found more than half of employers are now prioritizing childcare benefits in work contracts in an effort to retain staff and increase productivity. They say the lack of adequate and affordable childcare costs U.S. companies $23 billion a year, and the ripple effects are felt far wider than in individual households. Brad William is the CEO of care.com, and he's joining us now. Brad, we're looking at a job market that continues to be relatively tight here. So what does this survey tell you about, how important it is for these companies to offer benefits to get people through the door?
Yeah, it's vitally important, and thank you for having me, Julie. So I think for context, this is a report we've done now for the past 4 years, and we made a little change this year, which was really illuminating. So for the past 3 years prior to this one, we surveyed HR professionals and corporate leaders around the future of benefits, particularly around care in our case. This year, we added employees into the mix, and so what we found was really fascinating. When you think about the backdrop over the past 3 years with return to office and certainly COVID, and as you mentioned, rising costs, particularly around childcare, the fascinating thing is we actually have common ground between employees and employers. So everyone agrees care benefits are very meaningful. But the other things we found that were pretty interesting were that when you think about the 4 generations in the workforce, everyone from baby boomers down to Gen Z, everyone is managing some type of care. And what was really interesting about that particular piece was around 1/5 of workers across all generations are now starting to focus on senior care or have someone that they're caring for that's elder. So that was a really interesting insight. But I think the other couple dynamics that are worth calling out here is that employees are certainly expecting their employers to help them with the cost of care. We've mentioned in prior surveys and reports that the cost of care has risen between 60 and 80% over the past decade when you have normal inflation around 30% over that time. So it's pretty vital. And as you cited, 56% of employers are now citing that they're starting to focus on childcare more meaningfully in 2024, and that's up from 10 points last year in our survey.
And Brad, I'm interested too, as people spend more on childcare, do they spend less on other areas? Can we kind of track the economic ripple effects there?
We haven't necessarily seen that as much, Josh. We're seeing more investment in this area from a benefit perspective. But if you think about it from the past, a lot of what employers were doing, we're trying to subsidize maybe on-premise or near-premise daycare facilities or locations. But that's not really meeting the needs of workers today. If you think about, obviously, COVID sent a lot of people back to home. And 51% of the United States actually lives in what's known as a childcare desert, meaning there's just simply not enough childcare workers for the amount of children going into childcare centers, or there are simply no centers around the location. So in short, people are demanding more flexible solutions, which requires in-home care in many instances. So what we're finding is that employers are really looking to more in-home, more flexible solutions where someone can come to the home. And they're actually trying to find different solutions for subsidies. So there's cash subsidies that they'll outlay to help employers, but also work on dependent care, free flexible spending accounts to help as well.
Brad, you mentioned how tough it is to find childcare workers. So I just wanted to get an update on that. What are you seeing through your site? What are you seeing in terms of the experience and quality of the folks who are coming into childcare right now compared with where we were, say, pre-pandemic?
Yeah, that certainly is a noted challenge in many media sources throughout or since the pandemic. And since the pandemic, physical location childcare workers have still been, they're still down about 5% overall. There were around 1 million pre-COVID. There's a little bit less than that today. We're finding actually quite a bit of growth in caregivers on our platform. So we're seeing meaningful growth week over week, month over month. And it's because of that flexibility trend that we're seeing. Again, more people want in-home or flexible solutions, particularly in those desert areas.
So that's interesting. So you think there are more people coming to it because there's higher demand? It seems like there's been demand, or is it because those costs are going higher, the pay is going higher? What do you attribute that?
It's all the above. There's much more demand to bring a caregiver or worker in the home than there is a physical location or facility. And then you may recall we went through what was known as a childcare cliff or a dip, certainly in Q4. And that's when a lot of the federal funding dried up for daycare facilities as a result of the American recovering effort through the government. And what's happened is childcares have had to shut down because they don't have those funds to pay caregivers or workers. So a lot of those same workers are coming over to platforms such as ours. And we are also working with, obviously, employers to make sure that we can provide these benefits to their employees.
Brad, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.